Wow, that is incredible. I could read this all day. Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 160, and for this one, we head out to Phoenix, Arizona. We play at Gila River Hotels and Casinos Lone Butte, brand new poker room. It's a very cool spot. We get into a ton of interesting hands, and that's why the video is so long. I think you guys are gonna love it. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm with my girlfriend heading to Phoenix, Arizona from Las Vegas. We make a quick stop in Kingman and my favorite spot along the way, the Rickety Cricket. After grabbing some delicious pepperoni, pineapple, and jalapeno pizza, we're ready for the rest of the 4.5-hour drive to Gila River Hotels and Casinos Wild Horse Pass. That's where I'm staying. The team has hooked it up with a fancy corner suite. Aside from having an awesome room, they have a nice swag bag waiting for me. There's all kinds of cool goodies in there. We're off to a great start on the trip. The following afternoon, I check out Old Town Scottsdale for lunch and even get to see some live music. I love visiting this area. I might even move here at some point. It's time to get down to business though. The next day, I'm hosting an event at the brand new Gila River Hotels and Casinos Lone Butte Poker Room. It just opened up the week prior. I'm pumped up to showcase it, and people come in full force. There's 78 on the list. We end up with 5 games of 5 to 500 spread limit on a Monday afternoon. It's an incredible turnout. There's tons of action here. The room is filled with people who are after Bradley dollars. I buy in for $2,000. $2,500 is actually the max. I'm not sure if I need that much to start. It's a large cap for a $5 big blind game. We're playing 7-handed, and I find out quickly it's wild here. The very first hand is a playable one for me. I'm not even situated when I look down at pocket 10s in the small blind. There's a button straddle, so I'm first to act. I open to 40. The big blind calls. He theoretically should have a narrow range since I'm opening even before the under the gun player in this instance, and my range will be narrow. We still have lots of players behind us that'll be in position the rest of the hand. The button defends his straddle. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It's 4-3 deuce rainbow. This isn't a fun spot to be in since I'll almost never connect well on a low board like this after raising pre-flop from the small blind. There also aren't any turns that'll be great for my specific hand, and I'm out of position. I check. If I bet, players can raise me and fire big on future streets to put me in tough spots. I want to avoid that. The big blind bets 45. It's a small sizing. The button mulls it over and calls. Folding is ridiculous in my spot. I call. The turn is a king. I'm downgraded to second pair. I could be up against all kinds of hands that are beating me. It checks around. This is very telling because my opponents seem to be afraid of the king. That means they likely have 1 pair hands at best, and likely 1 pair hands that are worse than pocket 10s. The river is another 4. There shouldn't be any 4s in the big blind's range. The button tank called on the flop. His decision probably would have been a little quicker if he had something like ace-4, 5-4, 6-4. I bet 75 for value. It's a small sizing for me so that I can get value out of hands like pocket 9s down to 5s. That's the most probable scenario in my mind. The big blind surprisingly raises to 180. Remember that this is the very first hand of the session. I'm already in a strange situation. The big blind checked back turn and all of a sudden is trying to represent a big hand when a 4 pairs the board. He's repping trips, but we already discussed that there shouldn't be any 4s in his range when he calls a pre-flop raise and is second to act. The button folds. Either the big blind got out of line pre-flop and made a light call to start the hand, or is getting out of line right now and is turning his hand into a bluff of some sort. I suppose he could have ace-4 suited. That's about it though. I'm confused. It's not too much more for me. I have to see it. I call. Of course, I'm beat. I forgot that when you're going after Bradley dollars, it's reasonable to call pre-flop raises with Jack-4 suited. So this is how it's going to be, huh? We're stuck a few hundred right away. I move tables to play with as many YouTube viewers as possible. We pick up pocket 9s under the gun. I open to 20. The cutoff calls. The small blind calls as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It's 8-7-5 rainbow. We have an overpair with a gutter. The small blind checks. I bet 35 for value. The cutoff calls. The small blind also calls. There's a coordinated board, so I probably would have gotten raised by 2 pair or better. Once again, my hand is likely best on the flop. The turn is the jack of diamonds. We no longer have an overpair, but we pick up a double gutter. The jack doesn't connect all that well with the rest of the board, except 10-9 makes it straight. 2 of the 9s are accounted for, making that pretty improbable. I wouldn't expect either opponent to have called me with anything like Jack-8 or Jack-7 pre-flop, although you saw in the first hand that you can't put anything past people in Arizona, especially when you have a target on your back. Small blind checks. I could go either way between betting or checking. I should still have the best hand since I have good card removal, and I want to deny equity from hands that I'm currently ahead of. I bet 105. I mostly want the cutoff out so that I can play the river from in position. The cutoff folds, so we accomplish that goal. The small blind puts in a check raise to 250. I wasn't expecting to get raised, especially for such a small amount. You may notice that I don't have the 9 of diamonds. I could be up against something like ace-9 or queen-9 of diamonds, and several other combo draws that I'm beating. I could also be drawing dead to a chop if he somehow has one of the last two combinations of 10-9 suited. I don't think the opponent would check raise with Jack 10, and I don't see how I can fold for 145 more. I call. The river is the queen of hearts. The small blind checks. I'm glad to see that. My hand has some value, so I won't be turning it into a bluff. I check back. The small blind shows Jack 8 of clubs. He drilled a strange 2-pair on the turn, and he gets me. There's a weird beginning of a session. Now I'm going to go ahead and add on for 1,200 more, so I'll have the full 2,500 in front of me. I took a few good shots in the early rounds, but that just wakes me up, and I'm ready to go. I pick up Ace-King offsuit in the small blind. Under the gun limps in for 5. The cutoff, who just beat me in the previous hand we went over, raises to 20. We're going to make it more. I put in a 3-bet to 100. The big blind is having none of it. He cold 4-bets at 250. He has 950 total in his stack. It folds back to me. I'm not sure where you come from, but where I come from, we don't call cold 4-bets with Ace-King. We 5-bet rip it in and play for all of it. Or at least we try to. I forgot it's a spread limit game and not no limit.
It's 750, you can go 5 on top.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The opponent doesn't appear to be thrilled about my 5-bet. That doesn't stop him from 6-bet jamming though. Don't you dare nice hand me before all the cards are out. Now I have no shot at winning. I don't have a clue what I'm up against at the moment. I figure I'm probably flipping against pocket jacks or something. It'd probably be a lot more entertaining for you guys if we both opened up our hands so that everyone would know what we're up against.
Alright. Sure.
What are you reading in my vlog's mind? It ends up being about the best case scenario for us. We're up against Ace-Queen suited and have him absolutely crushed in a pot that's nearly $2,000. Enjoy this moment because with the flop of Queen 4-3 containing 2 clubs, we're now the ones getting crushed. It's about the worst flop we could get. We go from having around a 70% chance of winning to about an 8% chance. The big blind is probably feeling pretty good about the situation right now. There's still a turn in the river to come though.
Of course. Nice then.
That's right. With the turn being an 8, I give him the old nice hand right back to him to undo the jinx that he tried to get me with earlier. I'm drawing dead to 2 outs. If you want to see us hit one of them, then on the count of 3, you better smash that like button harder than Mario smashes baby turtles with his hammer. Ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3. The river is the 10 of spades. We lose a big one. Wow, I'm shocked that didn't work. The next part, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit embarrassed about. I try to keep my cool most of the time, especially at events like this, when I'm hanging out with viewers, but after the way that this session has started, particularly when we get it in good for almost a 400 big blind pot and lose, I'm on edge and I just kind of go off. I considered editing out my reaction to the hand because I'm not proud of it. For transparency reasons, I figured it's best to show that I'm human too, so here it is.
It's pretty rough.
Sorry about that, guys. My mind wasn't in the right place, and there's not really an excuse for it, but I shouldn't have lost it like that. Next, we have Ace-Queen suited in the small blind. The hijack opens at 25. This is a spot where you can either 3-bet or call. Since the raise is on the larger side and I just got wrecked, I'm more in the mood for calling. That's what I do. The big blind also calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It's Ace-Jack 3 rainbow. We have top pair and a backdoor royal flush draw that, spoiler alert, we're never going to hit. I check. The big blind checks. The hijack bets 45. I'm good with that amount. I call. The big blind apparently didn't get a dream flop for his hand this time. He folds. It's heads up. The turn is the 4 of hearts. Pretty innocuous. I check. The hijack bets 80. If he has me beat, I don't want to raise and make the pot bigger. If I have him beat, he'll be drawing slim and I don't want to scare him off with a raise. I call. We should have the best hand most of the time. The river is a 9. That's not very worrisome. I check. The opponent doesn't fire this time. He checks back. I doubt he'd do that with any hand better than mine. That actually isn't the case. He got me for 2 pair on the Gila River.
You guys are getting whatever you need today, huh?
I don't know how he checked back with 2 pair, but I got somewhat of a break there. I'm stuck 1900 at my 3rd table of the day when I pick up Ace-9 suited onto the gun. The button straddled. The big blind calls for 5 more. I'd like to isolate him. I raised to 40. A poker vlogger new to the scene named Ashley came out to support and document the event, maybe get some Bradley dollars, torch me in a hand, and then post it to YouTube. She 3-bets to 150. The big blind folds. I probably don't have the best hand, but I'm getting a good price. I'm tilted. 2 cameras are out, ready to capture us go head to head in a vlogger versus vlogger showdown. That's what you guys like to see. Let's do it. I call for 110 more. The flop is Ace-Jack 8 with 2 hearts. We've got top pair, a flush draw, and a backdoor straight draw. It's great for us. I check. The opponent down bets to 105. I'm getting great odds. I don't see any point in raising. She could have something like aces, jacks, ace, king, and will either be way ahead or essentially flipping with me. She has a hand like kings or queens, we'll be way ahead, and don't need to turn our hand into a semi-bluff. I call. People have been getting whatever cards they need all day. Let me do it one time. The turn is another jack. This is a terrible card because, for one thing, I could be drawing dead. Also, if I'm up against ace, king, or ace, queen, 9 won't do me any good anymore. I check. The player checks back. We can eliminate trips or better from her range. The river is the 4 of diamonds. It's a brick. I check. I actually like the idea of betting small to get value out of hands like kings or queens that'll almost for sure check back, and it serves as a blocker bet when I'm up against better aces. Anyway, Ashley bets 225. Feels a lot like top pair, top kicker. I'm getting almost 3.5 to 1. It's a great price, but the vast majority of the time I won't be good, and I know it. If I'm playing my best, I fold. When I'm down big, I don't have it in me.
Seems a lot like ace king.
I call. To no one's surprise, she pretty much has the hand that I thought.
Ace queen. Nice hand, nice hand. There you go.
Oh, the hard draw. Is it a vlog off?
Ashley gets me good. I'll have a link in the description box below for you to check out her channel. Me, on the other hand, I'm unraveling, and it's incredibly tough to play disciplined. It ends up being 2 hours into the session before I win a single hand of any sort. I didn't even raise preflop and win the blinds during that stretch. I add on once more, I'm in for 4,900 total. I'm dealt ace-8 of hearts on the button, the cutoff limps in, I raised to 25. The small blind calls, the cutoff calls, we're going 3 ways to the flop in position. It's jack 8-3 with 2 hearts. Again, we flop a pair and a flush draw. It checks to me, I bet 50. The small blind calls, the cutoff folds, we're heads up. The turn is the deuce of clubs, it's a blank. The small blind checks, I could be ahead, or I'm up against a better 1-pair hand at best, and we'll have a ton of outs. I bet 125. If I get called, the pot will be larger if I do hit a flush, or I might just check back river if I miss, since I have showdown value. The small blind is just like my college counselor and doesn't really care about my future plans. He raises to 400. Oh man, what have we gotten ourselves into here? It really only seems like he's repping a set of 3s and possibly just called my bet on the flop. Even though there were a handful of draws out there and multiple opponents, he probably would have 3-bet with jacks pre-flop. 2 of the 8s are accounted for, so there's only one combo of pocket 8s. He shouldn't be calling pre-flop raises with jack 8 from the small blind, although we've already been punished multiple times today for trying to think along those lines. Anyway, I call for 275 more with a pair and a draw to the nuts. The player has about 350 remaining in his stack. For the first time today, we get a river card that we like. It's the 9 of spades. It absolutely doesn't help us at all. It's just that spades are cool shapes, and 9 is an interesting number because it also means no in German, as if it's answering the question that I was asking in my head on the turn, which was, are we going to win this hand? 9! The small blind rips it in for 350. Not much I can do here. I fold.
Nice hand, nice hand. You win. What'd you got? Jack 8. Alright, that was good.
Jack 8 of clubs is my nemesis today. So are all other combos of 2 cards that my opponents are holding. I feel like I'm hosting a daytime talk show giveaway. And you get Bradley dollars. And you get Bradley dollars. Let's turn it around and win a hand. I pick up pocket kings in the small blind. The cutoff opens at 15. He's in for a world of hurt. I 3-bet to 60. The opponent calls. We're heads up, out of position. The flop comes king 9-8 rainbow. We've got top set. Finally, we're in a good situation. I'm not slow playing this. The player I'm up against seems to be after me a little, based on my experience with him in previous hands and the fact that everyone here is after me. My sense is that he may call or raise me light. I bet 60 again. There's some rope. Do what you like with it. The player calls. That's great. The turn is the 6 of hearts. 10-7 and 7-5 get there. He shouldn't have those holdings though. I bet 130. It's not actually that great of a board for my 3-bet range compared to the opponent's range, given how he played it. I'll mostly have 1-pair hands like aces or ace-king. My opponent can have sets of 9s and 8s, maybe even something like king-9 suited or 9-8 suited hands sometimes. The cutoff likely knows this and raises to 330. I'm not sure if he actually has a strong hand and this is a cooler, or if he's getting out of line against me. There are too many river cards that I won't want to see, plus I'm out of position. For those reasons, I don't want to call. I raise to 830, the max that I'm allowed to. I have hopes that the cutoff has a set or a 2-pair hand and will jam for the remainder of his stack, which would be about 500 on top. It appears that we caught him trying to pull a fast one on us. The player folds. We're very far into the session before we win our first significant pot. We're still down 2,400. Perhaps this is when things turn around for us though. A bit later, we pick up ace-queen suited under the gun +1. Under the gun raises to 20. He usually only limps in and should have a narrow range, so although we have a solid hand, it's best to flat. I call. The cutoff calls, the small blind calls, the big blind calls. We're going 5 ways to the flop. This is interesting. It comes 9-3 deuce with 2 clubs. One more time we have a flush draw. Checks to the pre-flop raiser. He bets 30. He's betting into 4 other players, so you'd think he'd have something decent. Maybe he has an overpair and is betting small to be cautious with so many others involved. I call. The cutoff folds. The small blind calls. The big blind folds. We're going 3 ways to the turn in position. It's a 6 of hearts. The small blind checks. Under the gun, bumps up the amount to 120. That's still reasonable for what I've got in its potential. I call. The small blind isn't as interested anymore. He folds. We're heads up. The river is the jack of diamonds. We completely brick again. I don't know what I did to anger the poker gods, but it must have been something bad. Under the gun, rips it in for about 330 total. I obviously can't call with ace high. I fold. While getting a shot of the board, under the gun shows for the vlog that he owned my soul with a 10 and an offsuit ace. The man is playing with reckless abandonment, betting into 4 other opponents and not having anything. Somehow it works out great for him. If it wasn't against me, I'd love it. Since it is, all I can say is,
Nice hand.
You can hear how dejected I sound. Luckily, a man named Mitch comes over bestowing gifts. He knows I play guitar and he brings me some sweet picks from his company. Despite getting crushed, people here are all super friendly and this brightens my day. Off to table 4, where I look down at King Jack offsuit in middle position, I raised to 15. The small blind calls. He beat me in a hand that was featured on a vlog years ago. I for sure have to get revenge on him for that. The big blind calls. He could beat me at some point in the future, so I might as well get preemptive revenge on him now. We go 3 ways to the flop. It's 9-5 deuce with 2 hearts. Not what I wanted to see. We all check. The turn is the ace of hearts. We pick up the nut flush draw. Small blind checks. The big blind bets 20. I have an official from Guinness standby while I call here, just in case I break the record for the most missed flush draws vlogged in a single session. The small blind raises to 80. Well, we know he doesn't have the nuts. The big blind folds. I don't want to call for 60 more than either brick or not get paid when they're afforded the flush out there. Since I have a blocker to the nuts and I need to pay this guy back for beating me years ago, I re-raised to 320. Do you know how difficult it is to call and actually make it flush? If you're going on this video alone, it happens exactly 0% of the time. Eventually, the opponent folds. He shows that he laid down ace queen of diamonds. He had top pair and I wasn't in great shape. I need a win to pump some life back into me, but I feel a little bad about it. Most of the time, I don't actually enjoy bluffing people at these events. I'll still do it when I think it'll work out, but especially when they show that they've made the incorrect fold, I don't want to rub it in. I show them the king of hearts so that people can wonder at the table whether or not I had it. Until now, when the cat is out of the bag. The very next hand, I have king jack of diamonds under the gun. I open to 15. The big blind calls. We're heads up. The flop comes 8-5 deuce with 2 clubs. We both check. The turn is the jack of spades. We've got top pair. The big blind bets 20. I probably have the best hand. I raised to 70. The opponent just flats. I doubt he has 2 pair or better. The only 1 pair hand that he could have that has me beat is ace jack. It's more likely he has some combo of queen jack, jack 10, jack 9, or a draw. The river is another jack, so we've got trips. The big blind bets 110. I don't have an issue with calling. Raising seems slightly better. I make it 275. Certain people tend to call me light. I wouldn't be surprised if I get called in this instance by a worse jack, pocket 10s, or even something like 9-8 of clubs. The player lets his cards go. We've won 2 hands in a row. It hasn't happened a whole lot today, but I'm enjoying watching a pot push towards us. The opponent would later tell me that he had 10-9 for a straight draw on the turn that bricked on the river. We head to table number 5 on the day where we pick up pocket jiggities under the gun. This hand would never let me down, except in the prior episode when I doubled someone up with it, and a ton of other times. That's all in the past though. I raised to 20. Larry, aka fellow YouTuber Play-Doh Poker, I'll have a link in the description box to his channel. 3 bets to 60 from the hijack. For him to be 3-betting my early position raise, he really has to be strong. I call for 40 more. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes 6-4-4 rainbow. It's relatively good for us. If we were ahead pre-flop, we should still be ahead. I check. The hijack super down bets to 35. Okay, I'm fine with that. I call. The turn is the ace of clubs. Now we really don't beat anything that he would have 3-bet me with pre-flop for value. I check. The opponent checks back. The river is a king. That's not good. I check again. The player checks back once more. I roll over pocket jacks. The hijack has us notched with pocket queens. Neither one of us were very happy with the run out. Here I've got ace jack offsuit under the gun. I open to 20. Onto the gun plus 1 calls, the small blind calls, the big blind who's a younger kid that just sat down a little bit ago, 3 bets to 130. With me raising and a couple people calling, it was practically teed up for him to 3-bet squeeze. Perhaps he's doing this light. I'm at the very bottom of my opening range from under the gun in a 7-handed game. I should fold. I'm aware that I haven't won much on the vlog, and there's a better than average chance that the big blind doesn't have much. I play to what should be perceived as my narrow opening range, and I 4-bet to 400, sort of as a bluff. I have good card removal, and will have the best hand sometimes. I didn't want to flatten that people potentially come in behind me. I was too stuck to fold. This definitely is a bit of a desperation play though. Folding is certainly best in the long run. It folds back to the big blind. He's not ready to let it go. He calls. Maybe he actually has something decent. Still, he shouldn't have aces or kings. The flop comes 10-6-4 rainbow. We have no piece of that. The big blind checks. He can definitely have ace-king and won't like the flop either. In fact, that's the most likely hand that I put him on. I don't need to bet much to get ace-king to fold. I down bet to 325. This amount should get the job done. We hear 2 words that we don't want to.
Nice hand, nice hand. I have a jack. Is that good? What'd you show?
Queens.
Oh, yeah, queens? Nice hand.
That's over 700 that I lose that I wouldn't normally if I wasn't playing my F game. Don't make the same mistakes that I'm making. The point for viewers should be to learn from things that I'm doing incorrectly. With that being said, it's extremely difficult to play the same way when you're stuck a lot as you would when you're winning. I also have a slightly different motivation than most people who play. I want to win hands for the vlog. Occasionally, particularly when I'm stuck and I know I already have a ton of losing hands on video, I go out of my way to force things and it backfires like it did in this situation. We're about 7 hours into it when I return to the table that I began the day at and I have king-jack offsuit in the big blind. Under the gun plus 1 opens at 15. The small blind calls. He's a guy who just bluffed me off pocket kings with 4 deuce offsuit in a multi-way pot after calling my 3-bet pre-flop. I check folded when the flop came ace queen 6 and I had another player behind me. This video is getting long, so I didn't include it for the sake of brevity. People are doing strange things against me. Back to this hand, I call for 10 more. 3 of us see the flop. It's queen 9-3 rainbow. We all check. The turn is the 10 of diamonds. We've missed every draw we've had today except here in the most inconsequential spot. We hit the most unlikely draw. The small blind bets 20. I don't want to raise him off his hand and win a tiny pot. I call to disguise my hand, keep the opponent's bluffs in, and go for the home run on the river if it's a blank. Under the gun plus 1 calls. I don't want to see a diamond come or c4 to the straight. Unfortunately, we c4, but it's the 4 of hearts. It's a complete blank. We still have the nuts. Small blind bets 75. This is a fun situation. I have a hand no one would expect me to flat the turn with against someone who just bluffed me. I raised to 300. Under the gun plus 1 folds. The small blind is going back and forth in his head about what he wants to do. There's a bit of a metagame that he could be leveling himself with. Finally, he comes to a decision.
Alright, because it's you, man. I'll give it to you.
We get the call and show the straight. We don't have the best session. At least we ended on a high note with a win of a sizable pot. Time to call it and rack up. Session's over, played for 6.5 hours. I lost 32-10 right from the start. Things didn't really go my way and certainly forced some things, especially with that ace-jack offsuit hand. Didn't play my best and just got wrecked. So over the last couple months, I think I was on like a 20-something K upswing, and then over the last like 4 sessions, I think it's been like 15 hours, I've lost like 9K. So it just takes a really long time for it to build up, and then when you're playing pretty big games, it can just go quickly. So that was just a rough couple sessions, rough day today. But now everybody is at this bar, and we're gonna have a couple drinks, talk about some poker hands, and just kind of unwind a little bit, which is exactly what I need. This is typically my favorite part of the event, when I get to talk to everybody about hands they played, relax a little, and get to know the viewers. It's moments like these when I realize the results of a single session don't matter much. What's important is to understand that there's no right way to play jiggities. We head outside where a gentleman named Frank hooks it up with some of the coolest gifts that I've received, including a Johnny Lightning Poker Hot Wheels car, as well as a Scarface one and a sweet shirt. The group here is really amazing. Unfortunately, when I try to get a shot of them for the vlog and I tell them to act natural, becomes apparent that they're not the brightest bunch. This is a video, just so you guys know. That's it for this one, guys. It was a rough session, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. And please hit the like and subscribe buttons because it helps out the channel a lot. I appreciate it. Big shout out to Gila River Hotels and Casinos, Lone Butte Poker Room staff. They did a great job. Actually, the entire Gila River team, I want to say thanks to. They hooked it up with the suite at the Wild Horse Pass property and the swag bag. So that was all really cool. But particularly the poker room staff, because it takes a lot of extra effort to get that many people seated and playing, and they just did a great job. So thanks to them. Thanks to everybody who showed up. I still had a blast, even though I got crushed. And it still made for an interesting video. So I'm kind of happy to show these kind of sessions when things don't go your way. I think they're more important than winning ones, actually. I've got some meetup games coming up with Andrew. I'll have more information in the description box below. And I'm actually in Northern California right now. This is my parents' house. This is the room that I grew up in. And it's my mom's birthday today. And it's Mother's Day, so that's why I came out here. So happy birthday to my mom, Nancy. Maybe let her know. You say happy birthday too in the comment section below. All right, guys, hope you're all doing well. Good luck at the tables, and I'll see you next time.